So, hey, welcome back to Accelerated Investor. Thanks so much again for joining me. You have no idea how much it means to me to share with you, to come into your heart, your mind, your business, and share ideas around raising capital, investing in multifamily deals, marketing, wholesaling, rehabbing and flipping properties. We've had some amazing guests on. We've done some amazing solo casts, and today is no different. Today, my guest is Chris Arnold. Chris has been a real estate investor for over 15 years. But the interesting thing and the reason why I wanted to have him on today is because Chris is an expert at radio advertising, radio marketing. And when you look at what's happened with COVID and what's happened with direct mail and direct response, people are still always going to be getting in their cars. And when you also look at the fact that most of the sellers that we're looking to target over the age of really 60, 70, 80 years old, the marketing, the market that those people know, like, and trust is television and radio. So when you think about the sort of hierarchy of what do those people in those age brackets, let's say 50 to 90 years old or 60 to 80 years old, what types of marketing do they trust? What types of mediums do they trust? It's television, it's radio, it's the mail, and it's probably social media at the bottom, the last piece. And a lot of folks, including my mother and grandmother, they're not on social media at all, but they're both probably going to be motivated sellers in the next couple of years. And so Chris and I have a very unique conversation about radio advertising, how to set it up, how to buy it, what's the messaging, what's the funnel, and the return on investment for radio marketing for real estate investors. You'll also hear a lot more about how Chris runs a virtual business from Tulum, Mexico, and how he invests in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and a little bit more about his coaching and consulting and mastermind group. You're going to love this interview with Chris Arnold.
Welcome to the Accelerated Investor Podcast with Josh Cantwell. If you love entrepreneurship and investing in real estate, then you are in the right place. Josh is the CEO of Freeland Ventures Real Estate Private Equity and has personally invested in well over 500 properties all across the country. He's also made hundreds of private lender loans and owns over 1,000 units of apartments. Josh is an expert at raising private money for deals, and he prides himself on never having had a boss in his entire adult life. Josh and his team also mentor investors and entrepreneurs from all over the world. He doesn't dream about doing deals. He actually does them, and so do his listeners and students. Now sit back, listen, learn, and accelerate your business, your life, and your investing with the Accelerated Investor Podcast.
So Chris, hey, listen, thank you so much for joining us on Accelerated Investor. Super excited to have you. And let me jump in with our first question, which is, we're getting down to the end of the year. The election's around the corner. Kind of people are buttoning up their year-end Q4 goals. And then a lot of us will be, focused on what are we going to do in 2021? Hopefully things are a little bit more normal in 2021. So what are you focused on right now at the end of your year? What are some things that you're working on right now this week, this month that you're excited about, that you're teaching to your members, but also that you're doing in your own business?
Yeah, 2021 is going to be really interesting. I think there's a lot of people that have had to kick the can down the road on the distressed sell. I've read statistics maybe up to potentially 30 to 40 million Americans facing eviction. So I think it's about positioning, particularly with marketing right now. I know one of the things that people automatically do as a reaction, to something like 2020 is they back off on the marketing, right? I think a lot of times you should actually consider potentially doubling down. But as of right now, what we're doing is making sure all of our marketing is in position, particularly radio, which is what we're going to talk about today. Because once the CDC comes in and kind of removes that safety net, a lot of these people that have been sitting back, not making a decision about what they're going to do with their property, are now going to have to make that decision. And of course, we want to be out in the front, particularly utilizing radio, getting that message out there and being ready for, I think it's going to be kind of a break in the dam of people coming in and needing to make decisions around selling homes.
Perfect. So tell me a little bit more about your experience with radio. I haven't had that many guests talk about radio in particular to brand their business and get direct response leads into their real estate business. We all know you can reach a lot of people. Some of the folks have said, well, you can't target radio like you can target a social media ad, like a YouTube ad or a Facebook ad. Tell me, what are your thoughts around radio relative to other marketing channels, and why are you using it now? Why do you think it's going to be a big piece of your puzzle going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing radio now for 10 years. It's been the most consistent, dependable marketing channel that I've actually ever had in place. You know, a couple of things that people don't realize when it comes to radio, right? The first thing is, you know, they confuse themselves as their avatar or their demographic. So maybe guys like you and I, Josh, you know, we download our music, we stream it on things like Spotify. Mm-hmm. But if you look historically around the country, when it comes to single family investment, the primary demographic is over the age of 50.
Right.
So those people, being our parents or grandparents, don't listen to Pandora. They just don't. And so what they do is they have two habits that have been ingrained with them. And number one, watching television. And number two, when they hop in the car, they're turning on the radio. So I think light bulbs go off for a lot of people, because I like to call radio the marketing channel that everyone knows about, but literally no one is using.
Yeah.
One of the great things about radio is that there's virtually no competition, and it doesn't matter, you know, how good you are at conversion. If you've got a marketing channel that's oversaturated, some of the things like direct mail, a lot of people out there doing RVMing, text blasting, different things like that. But you made an interesting comment. Radio is not spray and pray. You actually get in and you target radio. And this is because human behavior, depending on when you were born, determines the type of music you listen to. So people that are 25 and 30 years old are primarily not listening to the same type of music that their grandparents are. So what we find is, based on the type of genre of music, when we go and we advertise on radio, we're actually hitting a very specific demographic. Because that's the way that our music preferences work. And so we're able to get right in front of people over the age of 50 with radio.
Nice. Man, that seems so logical. I'm thinking about my own family, right? So in my own audience knows sort of some of the dynamics of my family. I talk to my audience through this podcast about some of the things that are going on. My father has really advanced Parkinson's. My mother is very spry, taking care of my dad. There's going to come a time where my mom is a widow. We know that's going to happen. Also, my grandmother's 92, lives alone. She's also very spry. So hopefully my mom is like my grandmother. But here you have two women over the age of 70, both going to eventually need to sell their homes. Neither one of them are on Facebook. Neither one of them are clicking on Facebook ads. Neither one of them are going to get a text blast or respond to a voicemail. But they both listen to the radio. Like my mom listens to talk radio, Christian talk radio, some of the soft elevator music type of stuff. My grandmother, 93, still drives. She's still spry. She listens to radio, I'm sure. She doesn't even have a computer in her house, my grandmother. But they're both going to need to sell, right? And so you can target that by the genre of music that they listen to, which means the radio channel or station that they listen to, right? So tell us a little bit about some of your results that you've gotten, some of the stuff that you're doing now, Chris, that's worked for you. So maybe deals that you've closed from the radio marketing.
Yeah, you know, I think an important question is everyone wants to know the ROI, which I think is the most important question. If I'm investing in radio, what type of returns can I expect? So again, if you look at cost per lead, cost per acquisition, doesn't matter what marketing channel we're talking about, those will vary market to market. But the number that I tell people that comes out the back end that we care about the most is dollar per dollar return. Now, if you're newer into investing, we simply mean that for every dollar you spend in marketing, how many dollars are you getting back in return? And so we have set this up literally in markets east to west coast all across the country. And what we see is a consistent $3 to $4 return. So that means for every dollar being spent, there's roughly triple to quadruple on that investment for the revenue that's coming back for that. But the thing I like is you don't get any peaks and valleys. You know, I'll pick on direct mail a little bit. You know, that can be a little bit more of a roller coaster ride. But what I found with radio is just very consistent. So again, I operate out of Dallas, Fort Worth. I live full time in the Caribbean, down in Tulum, Mexico, but I run a virtual company. And so kind of our home base is North Texas. And so what we do is we maintain right around $3.50 within the Dallas area. And budget wise for us, we spend about $27,500 per month. Now, Josh, here's the interesting thing. We're going really heavy into radio. It's something that you can scale. If a listener right now is a little bit more avid on the marketing side, the first thing I tell those people is you got a lot of room to grow this thing if you're on the scaling side. But here's the interesting part. The barrier of entry for radio is super low. So if I ask most people, what do you think the cost is of beginning an advertisement on radio? The number that gets kicked back to me is I probably got to start with about $10,000 per month.
Yeah, I would say 5 or 10. Yeah.
No. So we help people set this all around the country, and our students on average are spending between about $1,000 to $2,000 a month to get started. That's less than what most people are spending on a direct mail campaign. And the reason why that is most people are paying retail for radio. Their process is I'm going to call my local rep. They're going to send me over a media packet, and that's how I'm going to buy my radio. That would be like calling a real estate agent for an investment deal.
Yeah, right.
He's going to sell you retail.
Send you everything that's on the MLS that's full price.
Exactly. So what we're doing is we are buying radio like we buy our real estate at a deep discounted wholesale price. I'm talking usually probably anywhere from 25 to 50% of what most people are paying. And here's the secret. It's no different than real estate. You always make your money on the purchase.
Yeah,
if
no doubt.
you buy a fix and flip property at the right level, then you're going to be profitable. If you overpay it, I don't care how spectacular your process is for rehab, and you're probably not going to get a profit on that deal. And that's why we're seeing such great consistent returns, is because we buy it at such a low price. And then on top of that, our students are able to get in the game for $1,000 to $2,000 a month, which is cool. And most people are like, I can't believe that. I just assumed. But Josh, there's two assumptions here. Number one, I assume that radio is outdated and I don't listen to it. And what I'm telling you is it is old. It's dinosaurish, but so is your target audience.
Yeah, sure.
And number two, it's affordable, because you're probably assuming that, man, I got to have a lot of money to do this. And that's why I found people have just kind of left it untouched. That's why there's virtually no competition around.
Sure. In my newest real estate investing book, The Flip System, you'll learn the proven secrets and strategies that I've used to be a successful real estate investor. You'll also hear the story of my journey from quitting my job to doing over 2,000 units of apartments. The Flip System is now available for a limited time, and you can grab your free copy at getflipsystem.com/podcast. You'll learn the same proven principles and secrets and investing strategies that I used to quit my job and pursue a life of financial freedom. In this book, I'm sharing exactly how I was able to personally close over 750 profitable real estate deals, make over 400 private lender loans, raise over $30 million, and acquire over 2,000 units of cash flowing apartments. Get my newest book now for free at getflipsystem.com/podcast. That's getflipsystem.com/podcast. So Chris, let me peel back the onion a little bit more. So you're spending $27,500 per month, but someone that's new, that's getting started, might be interpreting this and saying, well, I can start relatively inexpensive. Maybe I spend $500, $1,000, $2,000. I'm going to get consistent leads. But how do you get leads or pricing at a wholesale price when you're maybe not spending nearly as much money as you are? Is there a secret? Is there something that maybe people don't know on how to acquire that wholesale price with a radio station or with some sort of a radio broker? Because a lot of people just know they're just going to call up a rep. They get calls from rep, and then they're getting price and they're paying retail. Maybe somebody might interpret this, but well, Chris could do it because Chris is spending so much money. So what would you say to that?
It has nothing to do with the amount of money that you're spending at all. That's why, as I mentioned, we have probably over 100, around 150 students across the country right now that we've helped set this up. And none of them have ever advertised on radio. And I would say that probably over half of those have been in real estate just less than a couple years. So we're talking about people that are fresh to the game. But to answer your question, what we show and teach is the negotiation strategy. So we go completely through a different door than most people do. Again, natural person will go and call the rep and get a media packet and start the negotiations. What we do is we go and we pull data and reports on the station, which is telling us everything about the representation of the station. How many people listen to their station? How many people own homes versus rent them? How many people listen over the age of 45, right? All of this data.
Got it.
What we do is based on that data, we run and utilize a formula that tells us how much a 60-second spot is worth on that station. So, man, this throws reps way back.
Oh, so you're coming in from sort of through the back door with all the information that they don't maybe want you to know that you already know. So you're walking in and saying, this is what I'm willing to pay, not what pricing can you give me?
100%. We tell them what they're worth. And that really throws them back because they're not used to someone calling in and asking for things like a qualitative report or a rank or an hour by hour. Like, who does this person even know that these exist and how to access them? And that's when we come in and we fundamentally say, hey, this is the formula that we use all across the country to buy. We're not just making this number up. It's predicated on the value you bring as a radio station. This is what we're willing to pay, take it or leave it. But here's the interesting thing about radio is they will always take that price at some point because the selling of radio is based on inventory. Mm-hmm. So when inventory is high, they're cocky. They don't need us. But when that inventory drops, it goes low and they have to sell time. This is how radio stations stay in business. The great thing, and again, kind of a silver lining of COVID is it has been an incredible year to pick up radio because stations have been bleeding this year.
Yeah.
So I've seen one call closes with students that call in and say, this is the price, which is 25 to 50 cents on the dollar. And reps are going, okay, we'll take that deal. Because a lot of people bounced off of radio and other pieces of marketing because we talked about that earlier in the show. People impulsively come in and chop down marketing, which I think is the very last thing you should touch in your business, particularly when an economic downturn occurs.
No doubt. So, Chris, help me understand the messaging, right? So there's, direct response messaging, the We Buy Houses kind of message, help people move, avoid foreclosure, those kind of messages. Now that we know a little bit more about the strategy of buying radio and going in, analyzing the station, what is a lead worth in that market? What is the demographic that listens to that channel and sort of, for lack of a better word, sort of saying, this is what I'm willing to pay, jamming that down their throat and saying, take it or leave it. But the messaging now to get results, like putting the ad up is one thing, getting good pricing for it. Is there any secret sauce to the actual ad? Like, what does the copy say? What does the voiceover sound like? Are we hiring someone that sounds like the target audience to read the radio ad? Is it somebody that sounds like they're 65, like Wilford Brimley or something like that? Somebody that sounds like them. What are some of the secret sauce to get the conversion of somebody to listen to the radio ad now and actually pick up the phone and call or visit a website?
Absolutely. So the first thing I'll say is we're all utilizing the same ad. And it doesn't matter what our exit strategy is. So some people use radio to buy on terms and do creative financing, right? Some are building rental portfolios. Some are fix and flip wholesale. Sure. A distressed seller is a distressed seller. What you decide to do with that lead as an exit strategy is completely up to you. So you don't have to come in and tweak ads and, talk about whatever exit strategy you're doing is. We're coming in and we're hitting pain points. So we're coming in on an ad and literally bringing up the primary reasons we know that people need to sell at a discount. Are you a landlord that's tired of dealing with tenants? Is this a property that you recently inherited? Do you own a junky house that needs thousands of dollars in repair? Are you going into potential foreclosure? So if you listen to our second spot, we're just hitting on all of those pain points. And whoever's driving down the road will go, you know what, man, that's me. I'm a landlord. I'm sick of this is really key right now on radio. Yeah. I am tired of everything I've had to do as a landlord this year because this has been a very difficult year to deal with tenants and, all the different safety nets that have been rolled out. Like, I'm done. What I got to do to sell my package of X amount of properties and get out. And so that's how we're targeting them is via pain points through that ad.
Perfect. Love it. And you're looking for people that have, again, and I teach this to my members, which is multiple layers of motivation, right? So we just bought an 80 unit apartment building last week, and the guy was, 65 years old, had actually owned the building for 27 years. The biggest reason why he was selling it was because his tax deductions are running out. But again, like you said, over the age of 50, but this was a big apartment building. We had another 112 unit that we just tried to buy. The guy was 81. We made a full price offer, 6.1 million. Lost it because the other group also offered 6.1 million, but had a relationship with the seller. We just bought a bunch of duplexes from people. Again, multiple layers of COVID motivation. They've got evictions pending. They've got potential foreclosures pending. They've got a lot of equity they want to unlock because they don't owe as much. Again, because they're more of a senior owner. They're over the age of 50, or even a lot of these people over the age of 65. They've built up a lot of equity, and you might say, well, what problem does somebody have if they have a lot of equity? The problem is they want to get the cash out, right? That's what everybody wants, is to find somewhat multiple layers of motivation. So the messaging that you just described sort of hits that. They might have one of those layers, or they might have 4 or 6 of different pain points of motivation to sell. And they hear that radio ad and they're like, oh, well, and they might be getting direct mail. They might be an absentee owner getting direct mail and just throwing that stuff out. Right? Yeah. They might trust radio because they listen to it every day in the car more so than some direct mail piece. I do think that people...
go ahead. You hit a really good point right there on the trust piece, right?
Yeah, let me just evaluate on that. I'd like to hear your reply. But when we think of TV and radio, I think generally we trust that more than what we get from direct mail, which we trust even more so than what we see on social media. To me, I've never seen like a hierarchy or a study, but to me, that's how I look at TV. Even though a lot of stuff we'd see on TV is garbage, the news is fake, half of it, it's all crazy, but we tend to trust TV the most, radio's next, direct mail next, and then social media last, at least in my view. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so you're hitting on what I think is one of the best 2 qualities of radio that you're not going to get with other marketing channels. So let's just be honest. If you're running bandit signs, right, to generate leads, or you're text blasting people, you're spamming people, and I almost guarantee that most people are not putting their name or their company name on a bandit sign out on the side of the road, unless you want your brand to be hated. So the problem is people are generating leads through, spam-based marketing. And again, it works. I'm not saying that text blasting and RVM doesn't work. It works. The problem and the thing that you're leaving out is the actual building of your personal brand, because you're required to leave it off. So 2 things happen on radio. First is celebrity status. We know that, psychologically, something happens in our mind when we see people on television, when we hear them on the radio. Now you can see this via podcasts and social media. This is where movie stars come from. This is why people are famous. We elevate people in our mind. So here's what's so interesting about radio. If you're new or seasoned, doesn't matter. When you start advertising on the radio, you're seen as a local celebrity. Everyone has the attorney in their town that has all the billboards, advertising on radio. And if you see that guy or woman walking down the street and you're walking with someone else, you're going to turn and point to,
no doubt.
That's that attorney that's on all the billboards. We do that because that is our psychological response. This is where celebrity status comes from. Now, you're talking about people over the age of 50. So they've been grown up and they trust people on the radio. And here's the second thing that comes behind celebrity status, which is instant credibility. Here's what the consumer is thinking. If Josh is on the radio, he must know what he's talking about, because only people that are experts advertise on the radio.
Yeah.
This is the assumption. So if you look at the starting point with a seller via direct mail versus the starting point with a seller via radio, you are way down the road on the know you, like you, trust you already.
Sure.
Because when you start with a spam-based approach, they're calling you because they have no choice, but they're calling under suspicion. Like, yeah, I need to sell my house, but this person's been text blasting me, but man, I got to get the job done. Versus, I'm really excited to call Josh. I've heard on the radio. I know that guy knows what he's doing. He's an expert. He's a celebrity in the market. I trust this guy, automatically to get the job done. And that's a huge value.
Huge value. Fantastic stuff, Chris. Are you ready to automate and explode your real estate investing? We're searching for extremely motivated individuals who are sick and tired of wasting time and want to finally see real results from their real estate investing business. We're searching for investors looking to get to the next level and become a bigger, better version of themselves while being a more successful real estate investing entrepreneur. Apply for mentoring and coaching at joshcantwellcoaching.com/podcast. That's joshcantwellcoaching.com/podcast. So Chris, let me back up for a second and ask you how you got your start, like when you were getting going with your real estate investing business. Again, you live in Tulum, Mexico, but you invest in a lot of different markets, students all over the country, primarily Dallas, Fort Worth. When and how did you get your start in real estate? And then secondly, when did radio enter your ecosystem? When did that become your preferred method of property acquisition?
Absolutely. So I have actually a background in a master's in theology. So people
all right.
Like, man, should you be like in church world or out on the mission field?
I love the religion classes and theology classes I took in college. I took those instead of history classes because I thought the religion and the theology was so much more cool, and it was the same category as history, right? So that's cool. Yeah.
It is. And so I really kind of had a pivotal moment in my life where a seed was planted. I was finishing up my grad degree and I was like, man, I'm just not a conventional person. I just don't see myself in a typical church role. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I've got this master's in theology. And I remember eating a chicken biscuit at Chick-fil-A, looking up on a mural and like how Kathy Truitt had built Chick-fil-A and utilized the revenue and the profit from that company to go out and create positive change. Again, we now call this social entrepreneurship. It's building a business with an intended purpose to solve social problems. And so that seed was planted and I haven't looked back from then. And at the point it was like, okay, I'm 25. I know nothing about business. I got a master's in theology. The only two, what I would consider vehicles or delivery systems that I understand that people seem to do well with is real estate and the stock market. In process of elimination, I'm not that great at math. So I'm going to go the real estate route. Mm-hmm. And all I knew at that time, how to get into the game was literally just to get a real estate license. So man, I was over at Century 21 hustling for sell by owners and expireds. You know, that's how I got in. That's been now like 15 years. But you know, what I always tell people is sometimes the most important thing is just to get going on the road. Just head
something
in a direction. You don't have to have a specific and clear, destination. Just literally head in a particular direction. And if you at least get that ball rolling, you can pivot and adjust and figure out where you want to end up. And so that's what I did, man. I started on the agency side and went from there.
Nice. Fantastic. And how about radio? When did radio enter the discussion? You probably tried lots of different marketing techniques to begin with and eventually tried radio and thought, wow, this radio stuff's really working. And now you're an expert at that. When was that part of the conversation? And how did your first experience with radio go?
It was 10 years ago. So I can't tell you another marketing channel I've kept around for 10 years.
Yeah.
Because most of them, either get oversaturated. You have things obviously that can get deregulated potentially or disrupted. So I've been doing it now for 10 years. And honestly, 10 years ago, I got really lucky where I came across a coach who said, man, this is an incredible opportunity, a marketing channel. I trusted in him, picked it up, and I haven't looked back since. So that's how I got started 10 years ago.
And how was your results out of the gate? Was there like a horror story, like, oh man, I picked the wrong channel, or did the coach really do a good job in pointing you in the right direction and have a lot of success out of the gate? It's funny, I hear stories of both, right? I hear people that are like, I picked up a good coach, I paid somebody, I had success right away. My own story, I was 9 months in real estate with 2 deals closed, quit my job, 6 figures as a financial advisor, went almost 9 months with making no money. Finally, when I picked up a coach and believed in someone and somebody that really taught me some things, we made like $350,000 in 10 weeks, right? It was really about that coach. So what was your story like? Did you have some success out of the gate with radio because you had a coach? Take some trial and error.
Yeah, so this is the interesting thing about radio. I would say that most of the time when you start something out of the gate, there's a lot of kind of failing forward.
Sure.
I would say, man, very rarely do you launch something and it just works. I would love to be able to light the fuse every time and know that the, fireworks going to go off like it should, but it doesn't. But radio did. And this is why I'm so passionate about it, because as I help students set this up, I can tell you that the majority of them are executing contracts within the first 4 to 8 weeks.
Nice.
The reason that occurs is, number one, these people are not on a list. You have to realize everyone is fundamentally fighting over lists right now. How can I do the best list stacking? So I don't care what your methodology is. If you're cold calling, direct mailing, RVM texting, those are just different methodologies around the same list. What about all those people that aren't on lists? How are you getting in front of them? Mm-hmm. So what we're finding with radio is because it hits so many people, depending on your market, that could be up to millions of people within like somewhere like the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, right, where I'm at. All of a sudden you get people that have not been marketed to that are responding. And so what we find is, we have a good chunk of the time where we go on these appointments and we're the only ones.
Yeah.
They didn't call anyone else.
The best ones too.
They weren't on the list. And so now we're getting deeper discounted properties because we don't have to get into a competition battle. So I'm being honest with you when I say I didn't ever have a period of time in which I was really just trying to tweak and adjust and get this thing going. It's always just been solid and something I can depend on. And again, if you're listening and you're like me where I'm out of the day-to-day, which means though that costs me a certain amount of payroll to have that type of luxury and lifestyle. I don't want marketing channels that I can't rely on from a stance of consistency.
Right.
The worst thing you can have when you have payroll and overhead that you got to write a check for every month is to have marketing that just goes up and down, whenever it wants to. So that's why I love radio, because it's just tried and true. It's consistent and I can depend on it for that lead volume for my sales team every month.
Fantastic. So Chris, as we kind of round third here and head for home, now that you've had this experience, this 15-year journey as an entrepreneur, you've obviously relocated to Tulum. You're operating in one of the most beautiful parts of the world, and you're doing things virtually, using radio as the backbone of your business. What kind of advice would you give your younger, former self, or maybe one of even your new students, or maybe one of our listeners who's just kind of getting going, or maybe somebody who's maybe had a lot of experience and had a lot of success, but COVID maybe chopped their knees out, and they've got to find a new path. They've got to find a new way forward. What kind of advice would you give those different groups based on what you've learned and some of the, trial and error that you've tried and had success with?
Yeah, so I can tell you, and my biggest passion is I run a brotherhood for the top real estate entrepreneurs around the country. All those guys fly down here to Tulum. They're the best of the best. But I can tell you, people ask me, Chris, why do you do that? The problem that we're solving is the problem that entrepreneurs isolate. Mm-hmm. Particularly, if shit hits the fan, entrepreneurs isolate. In that isolation, they're left to their own to try to figure out what's going on. And usually it will come out sideways, right? This is why you see a lot of substance abuse and alcoholism, different things like that, extramarital affairs. And so people always ask me, like, Chris, if you could go back, what would you have done quicker? I always tell two people, it comes down to the two C's. What coach do you have in your life that's coming in and speaking truth? And what community are you a part of that's not allowing you to isolate, but is there to be a reflection and is willing at those times you need to kind of get in your face and tell you the truth? I just find it's not natural, particularly for men, to do that. Yeah. If you look at statistics and anything that surveys men on, how many men in your life could you confide in about the deepest, darkest things in your life? Over 80% will give you a resounding zero.
Zero, yeah, sure.
Men, which means that statistically 2/3 of the audience listening today, 2/3 of the leaders in the world will fail to finish the race that they're starting to run. 2/3 will fall out either because of a moral misstep or they'll burn themselves out. That means we only have 1/3 of people out there that are creating a long-term legacy and really leading people in a direction and not get disqualifying and leaving a wake of bodies and a lot of discouragement. So if you ask me, I wish I would have got a coach sooner. I waited probably about 3 years. That was way too long. I was trying to trial and error on my own, which was just foolish. And I waited too long to build communities. And that's why I built Multipliers, because I needed it as much from myself as I knew these other men and friends of my life needed it as well. And so I tell people, man, coaching the community is essential. You ain't going to get to clarity alone. I don't care how smart you are. You're a fool if you think you can get to the top of Everest by yourself. Ain't going to happen.
Coaching plus community equals clarity. I love it. Chris, it's been an absolute blast spending some time with you on Accelerated Investor. If our audience wanted to learn more about you, your business, your radio strategies, your community, or just make a trip to Tulum, man, how would they get in touch with you?
I always tell you, I got a buddy here right now, just arrived yesterday in Saloon. So I love having people come down and hosting them. But if you're interested in the radio piece, again, you want to see if your market's open. We do run exclusivity per market. I'm smart enough to preserve this thing and not let it get oversaturated. But if you want to check that out and book a call and just start with questions, well, that's what I tell people to do. Yeah. Go to wholesalinginc.com/REI radio. Again, that's wholesalinginc.com/REI radio. If you heard a little bit about the isolation piece, and I hear guys that will call me and go, dude, I don't have community. And when you said that, I realized I was the guy you were talking about. Yeah. If you're doing a minimum of $1 million a year in revenue, and you're interested in real estate community at a very high level, you can go to multipliersbrotherhood.com. Again, that's multipliersbrotherhood.com.
Sweet. Chris, listen, this has been a blast getting to know you a little bit better. Thanks for spending some time with us on Accelerated Investor.
Glad to add some value today and talk about something unique.
So there you have it, guys. Listen, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Chris Arnold. I was absolutely blessed to have him on today. I love interviewing people that have brand new strategies, in this case, radio marketing. I love to talk to people who are authentic, who are talking about having, coaching and community and how they can take that community to have a larger social purpose, which Chris talked about. And I hope you really enjoyed the interview. If you did, please go into iTunes. Leave us a rating, leave us a review. Go into YouTube, subscribe, click that red slider button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you get the notifications every time I release another podcast, release another YouTube video. You can only get those notifications if you go in and hit that subscribe button in iTunes and YouTube. And guys, listen, if you enjoyed what you heard from Chris, check out his websites, check out his information, and take the next step and learn more about what Chris has to offer. Listen, I always appreciate you and our community so much. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed the interview, share it. Share it on your social media platform, share it in your email marketing, share it with your other groups so we can get the word out about Accelerated Investor. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Hey, Josh here, and do you want to win a free Accelerated Investor t-shirt? All you have to do is give Accelerated Investor, our podcast, Accelerated Investor, a rating and a review on iTunes, okay? Do that now. Then send us a screenshot on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. What we're going to do then is every week we're going to pick our favorite rating and review, and we're going to send that person a free t-shirt and maybe, again, some other cool, fun stuff as well from Accelerated Investors. So, again, don't forget to take a screenshot. Leave a rating, review, take a screenshot, send it to us so we know exactly who you are. And then once a week, every week on the podcast, we will announce a new winner. Don't forget to take a screenshot and send it to us so we know exactly who you are. We'll announce a new winner every week.
You've been listening to Josh Cantwell and the Accelerated Investor Podcast. Leave a comment on our iTunes channel and let us know what you want to learn next or who you'd like Josh to interview. While you're there, give us a 5-star rating and make sure to subscribe so you can be the first to hear new episodes. Follow Josh Cantwell and his companies, Strategic Real Estate Coach and Freeland Ventures, on all social media platforms now, and stay up to date on new training and investment opportunities. To start your journey toward the lifestyle you've always dreamed of, apply for coaching at joshcantwellcoaching.com.